Hey guys, it is May 12th here in Minnesota. It's going to be about 80 degrees again today. Right now it's only 9 a.m. and it's tank top weather, so that's pretty awesome. Usually we have a last frost date of about May 15th here. Last year it was about 3 weeks early, and this year it's been about a couple weeks since we've had one, maybe about a week and a half. It's hard to say. So I planted my garden already. I started from seed, and most of the seeds that I had to plant were from the last few years too. So I wanted to get them in the ground, and so if for whatever reason I have to replant, I can just replant. When I started planting, I looked ahead at the 10-day forecast, which went through our expected last frost date, and it was not going to get below 50 at all, even at night. So I felt pretty safe and comfortable planting. I did not start any plants indoors this year, so I didn't have to worry about putting some plant starts out in the ground and sacrificing all time and effort that those take. I will purchase some pepper plants, some pepper starts here from our local nursery yet this year, but I won't do that yet. I will wait a little bit before I make that purchase and that sacrifice. I'm antsy to get them, but I don't want to regret it. This is 3 days later editing Haley that just had to run outside in the rain to collect her plants that she bought at the local nursery literally 2 hours after making the claim that she was going to wait to buy pepper plants. So I'm slowly trying to acclimate them to the outside, and it's been pouring rain all day, so they got watered, but I try to bring them in before they froze. So when I say I'm going to wait to purchase something, don't hold me to it, because I made it about 2 hours after I made that announcement. Also, I will be getting some strawberry plants. I had strawberry plants a few years ago, and I overwintered them in some raised beds that I had. I'll plant them in the same beds that I did that year, a couple years ago. I don't know if I didn't uncover them soon enough and water them soon enough. And last year I got some strawberry plants and I put them in my green stock, which you can put strawberries in a green stock, but I have the leaf version, not the standard version. And so with the leaf version, the pockets aren't as deep. I will show you the green stock here in a second. The pockets aren't as deep, so the root system can't go down as far. So those just didn't produce at all last year. Those really just didn't do good. And I got them from the same place, so I know it wasn't the plants. I know it was user error. So I won't be putting those in green stocks again. I will be putting them back in the containers that they did so well in a couple years ago. But other than that, I've got most of my garden planted. There are a few other things I have to do with it yet. And I will kind of give you guys a little tour today. I had planned on setting up my tripod and filming a bunch of the garden prep and the garden work and the planting and all that. But what happens to me is I say, oh, I'm just gonna go peek up at my garden after the kids go down. And then I'm out here until the sun goes down after 9 p.m. and I forget. I get so much stuff done and I forget that, oh yeah, I should have recorded that. And that's happened several times, and so after you do that accidentally 3 times, you get a lot of stuff done and your garden's planted all of a sudden. I think I have a video up on my YouTube. I'll put this video on Facebook and YouTube. I think I have a video up on YouTube of what my garden looked like last year. I think it's important to have pretty things in your garden that makes you want to come back. Not only that, I obviously be aesthetically pleasing is important, in my opinion. So I'm working at that. That's not something that I'll put a huge money investment in right off the bat. So everything you see, minus one tiny little trinket, everything you see in my garden that's a decor item or a trellis of any sort is all found on this farm here or has been gifted to me, including all of our raised beds, minus the green stock. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think that's just as important. I like taking items from this farm, which was a family farm. My kids are 6th generation on this farm from my husband's side. So I think that's pretty neat. So anything that we can use around here, I find pretty special. But I will take you guys around and show you what each bed looks like, what it's got going for it, its plan, and then show you what I've planted. There's a few things coming up right now, but not a whole lot. And then I will give you guys an idea of what is coming for the year for us. I'm pretty excited for this garden season. This year will be, let's see, this is the 3rd garden season on this plot right here. And I made a lot of amendments to the soil, put in a lot of effort slowly without, again, being a huge investment. Soil's not cheap. This was a field at one point, so I got to give that some leniency as far as there might be some lingering pesticides in the ground. Granted, it's been like 5 years since that was conventionally farmed. All right, so to start on the list of things that will need to be done, I'll start with that. I'll start with the things that yet have to be done for the garden this year. Before we walk into the garden, you'll see the sun is bright today. My makeshift gate on my archway here. That is just fence and T-post that I pick up and move over. I don't know if you can see behind me, there's some old barn doors here. Those were actually set up for our wedding several years ago now. And they just kind of live there now. It was a backdrop for some pictures. They turned out really wonderful. But my plan, and I did the measuring and everything, I just actually have to do it, is to cut down one of those doors to about as high as this little fence is. Put some hinges on it and use that as a garden gate. So that's my plan with that. That is not at the top of the list though, because that is for visual purposes, not for planting purposes. Anyways, the next thing, well, let's get in here and I'll show you. So as you can see behind me, we have the border edge of the garden, which is 30 by 30. And then we have 3 separate beds in the middle. And then several different containers. You're currently sitting in my green stock right now, so I can't show you that. But I haven't typically mulched in the past. I decided to do that this year to hopefully maintain some moisture in the ground and kind of keep its own ecosystem a little bit better. So it's not so dependent on me, which is dependent on the sun and the rain and the kids' schedule and my husband's schedule for me to come out, because you would think it'd be easy to come water a garden for 10 minutes while you have a couple kids, and it's just not. So I will take you guys around and show you what I have had planted already and what I plan on doing yet with the soil, with the ground, as a final step. Some of the things I have done in the garden this year already, other than the planting and the soil amendments, weed whipping around everything, cleaning everything up. I had cardboard laying on a lot of these beds, and that very much shredded throughout the year, so that was a fun cleanup. You'll see pieces of cardboard, I'm sure, laying around in some of my beds still, but it's disintegrating. It's fine. It wasn't full of ink or anything. I'm not worried about it. It's just, it is what it is. Also, something you will see around my garden a lot of, mostly in the walkways, but even some in the beds, is dandelions. First of all, they're great for the pollinators. Second of all, I just think they're really pretty, and right now my garden isn't very pretty. Another reason I haven't ever mulched in the past is I love the look of dirt. Well, when you got mulch on the beds, it kind of covers that up. But efficiency, really, right? That's more important, right? So I'm gonna leave some dandelions if it makes it a little prettier. I hung up some ornaments, and I don't know if you can see it right now, but about right here, there's a weather vane that is also a little ornament slash trellis if anything decides to climb it. I don't have anything planted there that will climb it. But that weather vane was on the top of the huge 3-story barn that we had to tear down to build our house. Sad, I know. Terrible. But it was coming down anyways. It was very old and it needed to. But we've saved a lot of things from that barn that we will use. Actually, that door I was showing you guys that was going to be the garden gate, that was also off the barn. So we get plenty of use out of it. Also, this old metal bed frame. There's that headboard, and then there's a footboard over on this other corner here. That I have peas planted under. I have not grown peas, so we'll see. So hopefully those will climb it as a trellis. But yeah, so other than that, I will show you guys each bed and show you what has in store for the season. So this bed is planted with zucchini all the way down to the corner here. I don't remember how many plants I have planted. We'll have to wait to see when they come up. I just weed whipped yesterday, so that's what all the dead grass is. I will mulch this. I just planted it. I got ahead of myself. I planted this before I mulched it. So I don't know where the plants are going to come up, so I'm going to wait until they do before I mulch it. I'll just have to really keep an eye on the watering. This thankfully is right next to the tree line, so it doesn't get as much sun as the rest of the garden. Still gets plenty enough to dry out the soil, but I had green beans planted here last year. They did really well. And after the season was over, I dumped out some of my green stock soil and added that to the ground. So hopefully this section will do great. As we come over here, you'll see that I love my shadow in there. I have, like I said earlier, I have peas planted underneath this trellis here. I threw some zinnia seeds back in that corner. And as you come through here, I don't know if you can see, tiny little volunteers coming up, and then of course dandelions, but lots of little volunteers. So this bed doesn't have the healthiest soil here. I need to add some garden soil to this. It's just pretty sandy slash clay combo. There's just not a whole lot of healthy soil there. So I'm going to add some extra soil to this long bed here. We had cucumbers and dill planted here last year. They did really well, but it's just, it can do better. I had a bunch of volunteer dill come up in this bed last year, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see how fine it is, but there is a ton coming back again this year. Even some coming up right out that brick. Love me some good volunteers. And there's several volunteer, either sunflowers or cucumbers. I can't quite tell right now. but they're everywhere. So this bed here will be another succession of zucchinis, and I'm not sure what else. I think I'm gonna throw some cucumbers over here and zucchinis down here. Cucumbers were primarily over here, so I'll rotate those around a little bit, but I already have both cucumbers and zucchini planted, so I'm not too worried about getting a jump on that. Over here under this trellis, again, we have some more peas planted. There's a little bit of a gap here, but again, I weed whipped yesterday, so there's dead grass everywhere. And I threw some more zinnia seeds back there. You can't really see my little area. I have it all separated for. So this area right here, you can see all the little holes in the straw from right here over. This is all patty pan squash. I have not grown that yet either, so we'll see if we like it. And from here over, you can see some lines. I have about 50 green bean plants planted from here over. I'm really excited for those again this year, and I'm hoping that I can actually preserve some. We ate a lot of fresh green beans last year, but I didn't plant near as much, so. This is, nothing's planted in this yet, or that one. And then there's a volunteer pumpkin at the end. But these, I plan on putting strawberries in again this year. So hopefully those turn out again. This bed here, a couple more hills. There's 3 hills in this bed of cucumbers. Hopefully they come up well. I have some radishes planted in here. You can see little babies coming up. I planted those a while ago. It looks like some volunteer carrots too. And then in that watering can, I like planting those overflowing flowers. Those look really nice, and the pollinators love them. Nothing planted in here yet. I wanted to add some more soil to this before I did, but looks like there's quite a few volunteer carrots coming up. But I plan on planting more green onions in here. I had a bunch of green onions planted throughout my peppers in my big trough over there last year. But we'll get to that. So green onions in here. I do already have green onions planted in that other one. Happened with this bed here, the one I just showed you last year. Well, it was actually 2 years ago. I was cleaning up my garden, and my husband had left, I don't remember if it was a bucket or a tin of something out here that had filled with water, and I went to dump it out, and it was very shiny, and turns out there's a bunch of oil and stuff in it. So this bed had, perfectly ran down the bed. So I was like, okay, not gonna plant anything in that this year. So what I did was I covered, that was the beginning of last growing season, I think. Or maybe it was the end of the growing season before that. Last year, I planted a bunch of sunflowers in here. They got really, really tall. They didn't produce very much. They didn't get very, big. The heads didn't. And that might have been the variety. But sunflowers are supposed to suck up some toxins from the ground. So I thought that would be a good option. It added some dimension. It added some pretty to the garden. And I also wasn't going to be planting stuff in here that we were going to consume, or that I was going to be disappointed if it didn't grow. So this year, I decided to kind of do the same thing. It kind of got overrun with grass because I just didn't weed it. Got overrun with grass, and I don't have the finishing edging on this bed. Every other bed you see are either rocks from the field edging or the bricks that edge the outside of the garden beds, like behind me here. Those are bricks that we found on property here. So I need to find some more rocks or some more bricks to finish this bed out anyways. But yesterday I decided to finish up all my zinnia, marigold, cosmos, and sunflower packets that were opened. And I just broadcasted them on the ground, and I threw some old aged manure on top of it. And I'm hoping we get a nice flower patch in the middle of the garden. I didn't plant near as many flowers this year. I didn't intentionally plant sunflowers anywhere, which is bizarre. There's several volunteers around, I know, which last year there were two. But so I'm hoping this middle bed here adds lots of benefits this year. Let's see here. These small containers on either side of the trellis here, and then there's another one over here by this trough. I planted some lemon basil in those. I love lemon basil. I love basil tea in the summer. It's just great. It's phenomenal. And I planted a ton in my green stock. This green stock, minus the top because it's not full yet, and then I have one more tier yet I need to get soil for and add. But everything else in this green stock is already planted. So I'm excited. There's lettuce, there's regular sweet Italian basil, and several different types of lettuce. And then some more lemon basil in here. I planted lemon basil in those little containers last year too, and they just didn't do very well. I think I need to fertilize them a little bit more. That's one thing else I'm doing different this year is last year I just fertilized with aged manure. We just have horses. You can use chicken manure, but our chickens are free range, and I'm not about to go around and collect little chicken turds around the yard. No thanks. So we use horse manure, which typically is pretty high in nitrogen, which some plants love that and other plants don't. But if you age it, it kind of breaks down that nitrogen and it becomes a little bit more accessible to the plants. So we fill a pile up at the end of or throughout the season, and then we use that pile for the next growing season. So it has a little bit of time to break down. But anyways, this trough here is going to be my pepper trough again. So I'll buy pepper stars. Last year I only bought 2 plants. Actually, I bought 3 plants, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like them. I planted 2 of them in here, and I planted 1 in another raised bed. The difference between those plants was crazy. I've heard peppers like to hold hands, and they seem to grow well next to each other, and that was very much true. The other plant was so measly and just sad looking, and it grew some peppers, but nothing. I mean, it was a great Marconi plant, so those peppers should have got 8 inches, and those just got a few inches, and then the bugs ate them. But the plants in here went wild. It was so cool to watch. So this whole bed is going to be dedicated to peppers. I'll probably get a couple different varieties of sweet peppers to use. I actually had enough peppers last year. I used them in everything, and I had enough to chop them up and freeze them. And then our freezer went out, and those were the first to go. So that was a little sad, but I'm glad it wasn't our meat. I'm glad it wasn't our breast milk. I'm glad it wasn't green onions survived, but the peppers did not. But yeah, so there's that. Right now, I actually broadcast a bunch of lettuce greens, a bunch of lettuce seeds in there. So I'm hoping some of those come up in between. Last year, I did that with green onions, which is the only type of onions I grow right now. We don't cook a lot with onions. I use onion powder, but I'm not a big texture person with the onions, and neither are my kids. Which that's probably a childish thing of me, but I do love green onions, so that adds some flavor. So I will go plenty of green onions. I still have a bunch of them in my freezer from last year that I need to use up, but I love using them fresh too. So there's lettuce in there. I hope that starts to come up, but just look at this volunteer pumpkin. It's a brave little guy. At least I think this is a pumpkin. Let me know if it's not. Google Lens told me it's a pumpkin. I know it's some sort of squash. I had squash planted in this bed last year, but I don't think it's zucchini. These little fingers tell me that it's a climbing plant, obviously. So I'm the only other thing I grew in here was pumpkin, but those were in that far bed over there. So, but animals transplant sunflower seeds and all sorts of stuff all over my garden. So why would this not be possible? I'm assuming it is pumpkin. Another thing that is on the top of my list for the garden this year is getting me a retractable hose, like one of those collapsing ones that are fabric, and when it fills up with water, it expands. We have one for the animal waters, just so it's easier to drag hose, and it works really well. I mean, yeah, you have to replace them every couple of years when they start to get holes in them, but it works well. But I need one for the garden because that hose is really heavy and it kinks really bad, and it's so frustrating. And I drag it all over my garden beds, and so also need to get one of them. But yeah, another thing that I have questions about, how do you guys keep wind chimes alive? I love wind chimes. I think they're so pretty. I have 2 hanging off my trellis, and so far this season I've killed 3 already. No, 2. I've killed 2. I'm on my 3rd one. But the dollar store one that I bought 3 years ago is still holding on. So apparently the cheaper the better is what I'm learning. But they get shredded and they get beat up by the wind up here too, I know, but I don't know how to keep them alive. They're meant to be in the wind, right? They're wind chimes. One more thing I want to mention. Behind me is that hay bale, that old rye bale that I'm using for mulch. Ideally, if you're going to mulch, you want to use like straw, because straw is the stalk of a plant, not the stalk and the head of a plant, where that's what hay is. Hay is the stalk and the head. The problem with having something that has the head in it is that's where the seeds are at. So you're going to have basically weed seed or hay seed growing in your mulch. This is actually hay that we initially cut down for the horses, which we do whenever we have a cover crop and we have to cut it down. We just bale it up and use it for our horses for the year. But this is ryegrass, and we let it get really mature before we cut it. So it is, I'll show you, it is very much like a straw-like consistency. It's very, I don't know if you can see how coarse that is. And whenever, so it wouldn't have been good for the horses. The horses wouldn't have ate this anyway. So it was just sitting in the hay shed. There are plenty of weed seed in there, but this is so coarse that by the time you scoop it off the bale into the wheelbarrow and out of the wheelbarrow into the garden bed, all of the weed seed is either on the ground by the bale or in the wheelbarrow. So not much makes it into the garden bed. So, and even so, the roots of whatever grasses are going to be growing are growing in the hay, so they're super easy to pull out. They're not growing through the ground. Mulch will help with water containment and, dispersing it evenly and not washing things out. It will keep it from absorbing from the sun near as much, near as quick. And it will also impede some weed growth. So it'll be helpful. Again, it makes me a little sad because I like seeing black dirt, but if there's weeds everywhere and the sun dries out the soil and turns it crusty, it's not pretty soil anyways. All right, guys, I just wanted to pop up here and show you guys the garden, what I got going on this year, what is in store for us yet this year, my plans, what's planted. I don't think I showed you that 3rd middle garden bed is cantaloupe. So I have cantaloupe, zucchini, patty pan squash, cucumbers. I also planted some more dill in with the cucumbers, which I know I'm going to have plenty of, but the volunteer dill that comes up is dead and gone or went to seed by the time my cucumbers are ready to pickle. So I like planting some as well, just so I know I have, dill to actually use when I need to pickle. I use a lot of dill seed, but I prefer the actual dill. But anyways, green beans, zinnias, marigolds, cosmos, sunflowers, lemon basil, sweet Italian basil, a few different types of lettuce. I will still plant some parsley in my green stock. I will still plant pepper starts, and I will get some strawberry plants. I will plant another succession of zucchini and cucumbers yet. Some more green onions yet. And I will get some pretty flowers in here yet from the nursery as well. Yeah, and that's all my garden space for the year. Typically I grow pumpkins And I might find a place to put pumpkins. If my first zucchini bed is all done by late June, I might try to plant some pumpkins yet, but we'll see. I'm not positive on that yet. Oh, and I also have peas growing. That's new this year. Peas are new this year. Patty pan squash is new this year. But the rest is just favorites from last year. It's not a whole lot of variety, but we don't need a lot of variety in this house. We find something we like and we make it. Well, I make it. So I'm saving the space for the things that I know we enjoy. I do like the challenge of adding at least one new thing every year to slowly broaden our horizons as I'm building up the soil. But we got 2, so I think we're doing pretty good. All right, guys, it's Mother's Day. My kids and my husband are out of the house, so Mom could sleep in, which didn't happen. I came out here instead. But I just wanted to throw the camera on quick and show you guys what I've already done this year. Sorry I did not take you along. Yeah, my bad. Maybe when I get the soil for that back garden bed, I will set the camera up and I will show the process of throwing the soil down, mulching it, and planting it. Because sometimes those time lapses are very satisfying. Thanks for coming along with this pre-season garden tour. Hopefully there'll be a lot more excitement this year with the animals and with the garden, so stick around. Bye.